Well, I know you've all been enjoying the webcam on the Somerset Wildlife Trust website, and I've actually now come to the site with the landowner who actually hosts the webcam barn owl box. My first impression as I've walked into this field is that we've got fairly intensively managed central part of the field, but around the edge we've got these wonderfully electrically fenced off rough grassland margins. You're actually doing it here and it's working, isn't it?
It's working incredibly well. We've got margins here which are anything between 5 and 10 metres wide. Rough grassland, just left to its own devices, and we're pretty sure this is where the barn owls are feeding.
We're just putting our hands through the grass, and you don't have to go that far before you start picking up evidence of short-tailed vole. There's a tunnel, look at this, tunnel through there, and caterpillars as well down here. So this isn't just good for the voles, is it? There's other things here as well.
There's an awful lot of other wildlife in here. Things that I've seen increases in are things like grass snakes. There's no more grass snakes here. Hares, which I knew were here before, but now I'm tripping over them all over the place.
And that's a species which has declined right across the West Country, isn't it?
Oh, tremendously, yes. In probably a serious position at the moment. In the summer, what I find is that all around the margins, that's where the butterflies are.
Yeah.
Yeah, tens of ringlets, butterflies, all flying around in the middle of the field. Absolutely nothing.
If I stand back up again, we're looking at tufts of grass here as well. We've got a layer of fairly thick green grass down at the bottom here, but we've got tusks of grass around as well, like clumps, and great brown stalks sticking up. And what I see here is it looks like birds have been feeding here, absolutely stripping the seed from these tall grasses.
Yeah, this is actually cocksfoot as a grass, which forms really nice thick tussocks down there, great for the voles. And yes, the goldfinches and such like come along and eat all the seed.
Now, cocksfoot is one of the grass species that we're all trying to get rid of, but here you're encouraging it. But I'm just looking around at the tops, and they're completely stripped by the birds.
Yes, it can be a very invasive grass, but it does still have some benefits. So it's a point of, well, if you've got an awful lot of it, maybe get rid of some, get something nicer in, but don't get rid of all of this.
Mm-hmm. Right, let's carry on a little bit further, because I'm keeping my eye on the fact that down at the bottom of this field is where the box is, and obviously what we don't want to do is to get too close to frighten the adults out, because they've only just come in, haven't they?
Yes, they came in early November, and the box had been empty for really quite a long time. So it was a nice surprise to discover that there's two in there, and they do appear to be a pair, which is excellent news.
And a new pair at that.
A new pair, there's no rings on them, we don't know where they've come from, we just know that they're there, and, well, they're obviously eating very well.
And I think we can see why here. Now, in terms of these margins, has it been difficult to get them established, or is this something which all landowners should be doing? Because for all of us that have read the State of Nature report, it's gloomy reading. If we did, for instance, something like this, rolled this idea out across the whole of the country, the grassland areas, would we be part way to solving the problem?
Very much so. This is really easy to do. You just don't mow around the edge. If you think about, okay, the farmer is losing a little bit of land to take off the silage or whatever, but it's such a tiny amount that it could just mean a slightly bad year for one of the cuts. So it's not reducing the number of cuts, and it's not actually reducing the amount of grass that's coming off here.
And the majority of the field is still intensively managed, so you can carry on your business as normal. And I presume, I'm thinking from a farming perspective, most of your machinery when you're cutting, etc., gets damaged towards the edge. That's normally where all the rubbish builds up. So this is actually probably saving machinery at the same time.
It certainly is. There's no sort of running into fallen limbs from some of the trees or anything like that, which will make a real mess of your mower. So it's keeping away from all of that and keeping it out into what is the most productive part of the field. If you look down there, there's a nice big ash tree. Well, where the roots of that ash spread out, there's virtually never any grass because the ash is taking all the water, all the nutrients. So the fact that that's now a bit of rough grassland really doesn't matter from the farmer's point of view.
And looking around your field, obviously the margin is continual right the way around. And I'm looking in the wider countryside around here. It's fairly intensively managed. There are brown tops to grass, and it is the middle of winter at the moment, so we can tell what's rough grassland and what's not rough grassland. There are little bits around the other fields, but by far this is obviously the most important for the barn owls, isn't it? Because it's so close to home.
Well, they've barely got to get out of the box to go and eat.
Literally fall out.
Yes, and sometimes, watching on the camera in the evenings, they'll pop out and 5 minutes, 10 minutes later they come back in and they've obviously already fed.
Brilliant.
Because they then go back to sleep.
What's the future for this?
Well, I think the future for it is to have more and more of these margin edges so that the barn owls can actually survive and feed. And yes, even in a very bad winter, if there's somewhere that they could possibly feed, they've a much more chance of surviving rather than what we saw a lot of this last winter, where we lost a huge number of them.
And a tremendous knock-on for biodiversity as well.
Well, everything else that we're getting here, it is just stuffed full of wildlife. There's meadow pipits in here, absolutely everything.